It's really bad. I need to start bringing my reading glasses everywhere I go now.
Oh my gosh, get
It's
out
been
of
just
my
in the
head.
last.
I was thinking
I mean, I can
that's
still read
all
this, but
mine.
man, it's so much easier when I have them on.
See, I can't see far away, so I'm good with this stuff. This is fine.
It's been a real pain when I'm working around the house doing stuff. I have to like kind of try and get the angle, and I'm looking at it going, dang it.
I was lecturing and moving down the classroom this morning. I got way away from the PowerPoint. I'm like, I can't read what nothing next is on the PowerPoint. You guys are gonna have to wait till I get back to the front of the room. I changed it up, so I didn't know what came next.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome to the November 5th session of Hlpc. I'm glad to see some people in the audience. We have several things on the agenda today. The second, of course, is to consider the approval of the minutes of October the 1st. And I hope you've had time to read them. They were short because it was a very short meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, the third thing on our agenda today is the restoration grant reimbursement for the property located at 316 North Church Street, HRG number 2018-007.
Yes, Chairman. In this case, Mr. Michael Dean, who's sitting on HLPC, will recuse himself from the discussion. He's actually the applicant. We don't require he come down here. He can stay seated where he is, but just for our record purposes, he is not voting or making any recommendations. You can ask him questions as the applicant only. And so Mr. Dean had received approval for a project estimated to cost $31,000 to repave the existing parking lot entrance, expand part of the parking lot, and replace the existing wooden staircase with a metal staircase. During the process of his work, he realized that the metal staircase was not going to be possible and requested and received approval from staff, because it would be ordinary maintenance, to rebuild a wooden staircase with a new wooden staircase. And so that's why it didn't come back before you. So his final project cost, he was approved to receive 30% of the final project cost, not to exceed $9,300. The project's final cost was $11,113.10. Staff recommends approval to release grant funds in the amount of $3,333.93. I really was tempted to make that 9 a 3 just to keep going with that trend, but $3,333.93 is 30% of the final project cost. Chairman, there's the photographs of the driveway, and there is the staircase.
It really looks good.
That-
Are there any questions or comments before we approve the release of funds?
No, nice work.
Oh, there's Mr. Huss.
I'll make
Okay, please.
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I'll make a motion that we release the funds in the amount of the $3,333.93.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor state aye, please. Opposed? Thank you very much, and it looks really nice. Okay, the fourth thing on our agenda today is reimbursement for the property located at 418 North Mound, HRG number 2018-005.
Yes, Chairman, this is another historic restoration grant reimbursement. Thomas Tracy is no stranger to this committee. This is another phase in a multi-year project that he has worked on. His estimated project cost was $6,000 to restore, rebuild 8 windows. He had previously applied for and successfully completed restoration of 55 of the 104 windows. The project was funded at 30% of the final project cost, not to exceed $1,800. The project's final cost was $6,509.08. Staff recommends approval to release grant funds in the amount of $1,800. And the applicant is here, should you have any questions for him.
All right. Do we have questions? Do we have comments?
Let want the
Please.
other member up?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Heisey, come join.
It's rare that we have all 7 of you up there. I know it
I
gets, I know it gets a
know,
little
I
tight, so
know.
just gonna have to,
We got room.
just make sure Bo
Full
doesn't roll off the
agenda and a
edge.
Full house, I love it.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful.
I'd like to say that it's really
Please.
nice to see on a project that's obviously a very multi-year project, but that the work is being done right and shows that replacing can work to the building's favor.
Absolutely. A window properly restored will last another 100 years. Thank you. Any other comments? Besides oohs and ahs? I want this done to my house. Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the funds in the amount of $1,800?
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
I'd like to thank y'all for your continued support.
Well, I'd
Much
like to
appreciated.
thank you for your continued work. I wish every old house owner in this town would be so motivated. Okay. Agenda number, item number 5. Consider the restoration grant reimbursement for the property located at 323 East Main, HRG number 2018-008.
Yes, Chairman, the applicant was approved to repair the brick, front door, building fascia, window frame replacement, painting and repairing of some miscellaneous rotten wood. Obviously, this is the second half. I don't go to as much detail as you do when you're presenting it, so that's kind of the summation. But the project was funded at 15% of the final project cost, not to exceed $481.79. The project's final cost was $2,216.84. Staff recommends approval to release grant funds in the amount of $332.53.
Thank you. Comments? Questions? We're all here, but we're not very talkative. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the release of funds for item number 5?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Perky. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you so much. We love to give money away when it's going to good things. Alrighty. Now, number 6, we are going to pull out the item A and consider that after we consider B and C.
And just as a reminder, items that we present to you once a year on the consent agenda are all ordinary maintenance items. And so in order to receive or be considered for a historic restoration grant, they have to come before you for approval. And so this is our way of following the rules. And so items B and C are 100% ordinary maintenance items. And A has a request for something that is not ordinary maintenance. So you would be approving B and C, which are all ordinary maintenance.
And like it states here, it requires little or no deliberation on our part. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve?
Well, I have
Oh, please, go
one
ahead.
comment.
Yes.
And I realize that this would be agenda item 6C, the North Street property. I guess I'm just making sure, clarifying that the power washing is for the wood only and not the brick of which
Thank
the
you
building
for
is
clarifying
constructed.
that. I forgot about that.
And
We will make sure that that is the case.
yeah, yes, that, they don't get excited and do other parts.
Do we have to approve individual things when it's consent?
You just make a
calendar?
motion to
I don't think we
approve.
have to.
Yeah.
Make a
We
motion to
just
approve the consent agenda,
Yeah, that's what I
or,
was gonna say. I move approval of the consent agenda minus section A.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? I'll second it. Thank you, Martha. All in favor, state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, we will consider 6A, the COA for property located at 536 East Pilar, COA number 2018-010.
yes, Chairman, all the items on here are ordinary maintenance except for one. There's pretty extensive work being done to the front porch. You can see in the photographs up there that it's replacing post, railing, and the request that is not ordinary maintenance is the picture that's in the bottom, and that would be for this consideration, which is a product which is not wood. It's a wood fiber product, and we described it to you in your packet. It is called AZEC, and the contractor is here to answer any questions that you may have about this particular product. And you can see that it is same dimension. And it has wood grain appearance, and that's why I brought it up to you earlier. So if you have any specific questions about its application, I would prefer you to address those to the contractor, Wally Knight. So your only item for consideration is the use of the capped polymer decking, which is the AZEC product, in place of wood for the, I'm gonna have to look to my preservation person for the word. It's not the fascia, but it's the front of the porch. And I can't think of what that word, what's it called, Wally? What is that part of the porch called?
Oh,
It just,
the apron?
yeah.
The apron. Okay, there you go.
So I'm just clarifying, because I had a question before we even got to that this is just this single piece that's down that goes close to the ground.
Correct. These are the three sides that, you know, if you imagine
Alright.
on a porch. Underneath, you have the decking on top.
Right.
Um,
And so it's not the actual decking upon
No,
which we're
ma'am.
walking, okay.
Correct.
All right.
Could we have
It's
Wally
this,
come
it's this
forward?
piece right here.
That one, okay.
Okay.
So if you have questions for Wally, yes. If not,
Come on down. Please state your name for the record.
Wally Knight.
Thank you. Okay.
I'm a
tell us-
carpenter.
Tell us about this. I mean, just for general, education, because
Okay,
this is interesting.
they introduced this product a few years ago, primarily for the bird blocking around fascia, and they also came out with a 1x6. And it's a one-time application. It's paintable, and once you're done, it's done. Now, the cost on they come in 18-foot lengths. This 18-foot piece is $100. The 1x6 18-foot is $50. But I've had customers repairing their fascia that didn't blink at that, and they said, I don't want to do that again. So once this is up, it's done. It takes paint. It's nice and flat. And the problem I have as a carpenter now is this is a fairly good sample of 1x12 product. We can't get the good pine anymore. The D-grade lumber only goes up to 1x8s now. So, and the problem with this is cupping, splitting, and you will not find a knothole free piece. So, even though it's a lot cheaper, it's not going to last. There's some tricks of the trade that you can do to siding down by the ground. You can brush a copper tox product on it that essentially makes it treated wood. Also prime and paint the sides and the back to get some more life out of it. But this, we could put this up and stuff and do all that to it, but the odds are on the shaded side of the house, getting that much water and stuff, the longevity of it will be called into question. So
Okay, so So this is said horizontal support, but this really isn't supporting
No,
anything?
it's not.
Okay.
There's a
And-
substructure around that, I believe it's a 2x6,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
that this is attached to.
This is attached to, and the previous is painted, you're gonna paint this? It looks like that's the previous.
Yeah.
The current
and all
is
the
painted.
the column style will be era specific. It'll look a little bit different than those, but it's a substantial column, and we'll go old school on that and set that in buckets of primer or copper tox and let that pull up in there as far as it'll go. Yeah. So,
Any other questions?
Can you give me the official name of that?
AZEK, AZEK.
We're all writing it down.
Yeah.
Having a house with, I have some rot right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this is, you could do a ring shank nail application on this, or screws, either one on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So do we just, okay.
Continue.
All right. Now that we have, had this material explained to us, shall I hear a, motion to approve the COA for 6A? I'd like to make a motion.
So, or second, either one.
Thank you. Second. All in favor, state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. That, we need to always be aware of new products because, wood rots and,
And I want to say thank you to Wally for coming, because he
Yes.
approached Hannah and I, and we met with him over a week ago, and I said, you're going to have to do a show and tell, because if you describe something as a capped polymer decking, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. It doesn't sound very attractive.
no,
And so that's why I was really thankful for him for bringing the show and tell.
yes. Thank you very much, yes. Okay, what have we got next?
Item number 7.
All right. The COA for the property located at 418 East Main, COA number 2018-013.
Yes, Chairman, this is a fairly simple request. The applicant is requesting to remove, as you can see in that picture, all of that tan plywood, which is covering up transom windows. And depending upon the condition, and you've heard us say this many times, once they pull it off, same contractor, Wally, who was just up here, once he pulls it off, he'll be able to tell the applicant whether it's a rebuild or just a repair or whether it's a replace. The intent is for it to be wood-cased windows, just like there was there originally. Not wood-cased, I'm sorry, metal. Metal, which matches what is below it. And so the upper and the lower would match one another. But he won't know that until he removes the plywood.
Okay.
And the plywood is obviously not original.
Oh, it's not? Okay. Is that pretty straightforward, guys? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve COA 2018-013, that it meets the standards by which we're to judge it.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, I have 2. All in favor state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All righty. Thank you. Okay, item number 8. We will consider the COA for property located at 116 Pecan, COA number 2018-014.
This is a neighboring property to one of our HLPC members, Mr. Miller. And the applicant is requesting to replace an existing entrance on the primary facade with a black and gray aluminum garage, and then replace the roof, which would be replacing it with galvanized 26 gauge R-panel metal roofing and trim. And to give you a little bit of an explanation, when we met with the applicant on site, the door will if approved, obviously it's not it's going to happen, but if approved, the door will replace the existing opening. So there's not additional removing of brick or filling in of brick. It would remove that door window casing. And then something similar to what is on your screen in the bottom left corner of a glass paneled door. When it's not necessarily part of your approval, but I did scratch my head and have to ask the applicant, what would you be doing this for? And their idea is to move the fire truck, which is currently parked under that carport. You can all probably see it in your head when you drive by there, is to park that inside there so it can still be seen by the public, but more protected from the weather. And this property is not listed in the 86 survey, the 2010 survey, the 1990 survey, the 2011 survey. It is a ghost.
It's not that it's not contributing, it just doesn't exist, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
That's different.
And it has had significant alterations to it. There's two different styles of brick. You can see the roof line has changed over time. The awning over the front is not the same, probably didn't exist once upon a time. That may be why it was never addressed.
Okay.
Yes, can we
please.
add a question?
Yes.
The roof, when they're talking about replacing the roof, that's the structure's roof, not the projecting
Correct.
awning's roof. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? No comments? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve COA 2018-014?
I'll motion to approve, COA 2018-014.
Thank you, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Heisey. All in favor state aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Thank you. Okay, number 9. We are to consider the fiscal year historic restoration grant applications A through E.
And yes, Chairman, this is, for anyone who's new, this is something that you look at as a whole. You have lots of options. What we have presented to you are 2 options. You can throw both of these out, tell staff to go back to the drawing board, do something completely different, or you can adjust it here this evening on the fly. And I'll just have to get out my calculator because I'm not strong in the math field. Hopefully there's an accountant behind me and they can say, here, I'll volunteer to do it for you. So what we have presented in your packet, the 2 options being one that we've scored. And so what we traditionally do is we go through and we score all the applications. I'll go through the screen in just a moment. We score all the applications and then that coincides with a percentage of reimbursement. Over the years, we've adjusted it slightly, but our goal every year is to allocate all available funds. The last 2 years, we have had significant projects awarded money, never complete their project, or some that, and this is not a knock on one of your fellow people up here, but Mr. Dean, he had originally requested a lot more money than he ended up spending, so that balance goes back into the pot. So this year, we had a rather large sum to try to allocate. Hannah Anderson came up with these 2 presented before you this evening, the bottom one being 50% for everybody. And if we award 50%, which is the maximum any one person can receive, that would still leave us with $13,000. And so to kind of go through them, you have these projects you reviewed this evening. If you look at the screen, we have this project here on Pillar Street. There's North Street. And this was a case that y'all reviewed, believe 2 months ago. Substantial work to the front, removing of the awning, redoing of the front facade, redoing some of the windows. And then there's another one that you just reviewed. And then there are your 2 options. So Chairman, what you have before you is you can, if somebody wants to make a motion for the scored or the 50%, or if in your discussion you decide that I'll just pick on Mr. Dean because he's sitting here and he knows that we're just using as an example. If you say, no, Mr. Dean's project is not worthy of 50%, he needs to receive 40%, you have that ability to do that as well. And then one final comment is Mr. Dean is once again excused from the discussion. He is here only as an applicant for this part.
I move that we approve the second 50% maximum allowance. Having lived in an antique house for 45 years, just recently sold it, but it takes a lot of money to maintain. Anything that the city can do to help them, I think, is a good idea. And we got the money to do it, so I move that maximum allowed be in order.
Thank you. Did I hear a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
All right. All in favor of approving this proposed budget, the 50%, state aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. If we don't spend it, they'll take it away from us.
So that is all for your agenda, Chairman.
All righty.
And so
Okay.
the next, well, actually, I failed to add something that I was doing, I forgot, is the next step, this is a recommendation for the funding that I will then carry to City Council. City Council is the only body that can actually give money away. And so at the second meeting in November, which I forgot, it's the third Tuesday of the month, I will present to City Council this same 50% packet. And then once they approve, then all applicants are allowed to proceed with their work. Any work done prior to that is considered ineligible and cannot be reimbursed. So don't start your project till after council approval. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.